I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heather, would you please take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Lasky.
Here.
Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Keck.
Here.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Here.
Councilmember Rezga.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Community Development Director.
Here.
Police Chief.
Here.
Fire Chief.
Here.
City Engineer.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Thank you. Public hearings. Public hearing on the Downtown Development Authority Development and Tax Increment Financing Plan Amendment. The Manistee Downtown Development Authority, DDA, approved an amendment to their Development and Tax Increment Financing Plan during their November 13th, 2024 regular meeting. The plan amendment adds a section outlining a new TIF gap financing tool that this allows the DDA to help finance housing-related development costs for projects in the DDA district. The plan amendment will be considered later in tonight's meeting. At this time, the public has an opportunity to comment on the Downtown Development Authority Development and Tax Increment Financing Plan Amendment. Is there any public comment on this? Anybody? Okay. Citizens' comments on agenda-related items. Nobody? Okay. Consent agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval, any member of council may have an item removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Items include approval of minutes, payroll, invoices, consideration of authorizing the Manistee County Community Foundation Riverwalk Grant Agreement. At this time, council could take action to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Heather, would you please take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasky.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Keck.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. I don't believe we have a presentation by Nick this evening, do we?
Chief Glass is going to
Oh, okay.
do this.
Evening.
I'll be as brief as I can, but I want to talk about potential Coast Guard designated city. This came about over the last few years. I've noticed an increase with the United States Coast Guard Station Manistee, not only with law enforcement and ice water rescue and other types of enforcement, but community outreach, being involved in things like Kids Safety Day, our downtown trick-or-treating at the schools, different types of programs. And it got me thinking, when I was a young person, I grew up down by Grand Haven, and Grand Haven was the spot to go when you were a young person. And Grand Haven's always been considered a Coast Guard designated city. And so looking at the Coast Guard's increased community participation and collaboration, I asked Nick Gira, who's the officer in charge of Coast Guard Manistee, I said, what is this Coast Guard designated city? What does it mean? And so he ran through the application process, and it's basically the United States Coast Guard formally recognizes communities that are welcoming to Coast Guard members and their families. And there's an application process that you go through. And really, there's only 24, make sure I have that number right, there's only 24 cities, 34 communities in the country that have that designation, 2 in Michigan, which are Grand Haven and Traverse City. And I thought, what a neat idea. As police chief and as city resident, I'm always looking for unique and positive ways to shine light on Manistee. So I brought that idea to my boss, to Bill Gamble. I said, hey, here's an idea that I have. Do you think there's any interest? And so I set up a meeting between Bosun Guerra and Bill Gamble. He went through the application process, what it means. I've also talked to Carmen Cott from the Chamber to see if there's any collaboration there, and it sounds like there's some interest. I think it would be a great thing for Manistee to be able to tout the moniker of a Coast Guard designated city. The application is a little bit of legwork by city staff, but I think it's absolutely doable. But again, anything that sets us apart and shines its light on Manistee in a positive way, I think is worth pursuing. So that's kind of a mile-high view of the why, the interest, and a brief overview of what the process is. There's an application, it's pretty defined. We submit the application. It goes through the Coast Guard all the way to the United States Congress. It gets approved, or I'm assuming it would get approved, and there's an official proclamation by the Commandant of the Coast Guard if we are approved as a Coast Guard designated community. So again, just a quick mile-high view of the process, what my thought was behind it, what the interest was. Just basically checking the temperature of council to see if there's interest in this.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
I think so, absolutely.
Fantastic vision, yes.
I think wasn't the Coast Guard in a parade one year, they were Grand Marshal?
They are, you know, Bosun Guerra speaks at our Memorial Day parade. They're in our parades. Really, this comes from them extending out in recent years, being part of the community. If you've been to our Kids Safety Day, land a helicopter, really involved in what we do, our parades, our community outreach, things like that.
Weren't they even in sleigh bell and winter garb?
They were, I think I saw winter garb and a sword, I think one year I saw. And that's aside from what you don't see is the law enforcement things they provide, a boat in the water and other assets, but their community outreach is really what kind of spurred this to explore what is a Coast Guard community. So
Yeah, they spent the whole day almost down at that when we had the open house at the marina. They were just an asset. They just stood there in their uniforms, and it was just on their own they came. It was excellent.
yeah, so that's the process, and
Yes.
what I'm hearing from council is there's just a general consensus.
Yes,
of
yes.
this. Okay, I'll keep council informed through the city manager what the progress is. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chief.
We'll have a presentation from David Jarvie, Manistee Area Leadership Program.
I just want to quickly introduce myself. I'm Teresa Waldo. I work here for the city. I'm the Community Development Director, and I am part of the leadership program this year, and we've welcomed David to give us the presentation this evening. Thanks.
Nice to meet everyone. Hello, so I'm David. I'm a Manistee County planner, but I'm here for the leadership, 2024-2025 leadership group. Oh, sweet. Thank you. All right, so the Manistee Area Leadership Program, it's a 9-month program. Some of you guys may have done it before. Carmen and the people at the Chamber of Commerce, they show you around some of the assets of our community, you know, so everyone gets a little background of what makes Manistee great. As leaders in the community, they charge us with creating a project that will be of public good to the community, which I will get into what our project is in a little bit. So it's done through an annual community service project. Some past projects are the dog park at the First Street Beach, the life jacket stations that are scattered throughout Manistee County. And then also there is the Manistee County Big Day of Serving. So basically it's just kind of a hands-on way for the leadership program to, you know, through teamwork and problem solving, create a project of public good. So for our 2025 community service project, we are doing Art for All, or that's what we're calling it. Basically, it'll be sensory boards located in, I think we're hoping for 5 locations. 5 locations. I think right now 3 in Manistee, there'll be 1 at the library, and 2 of your choice, or 1 of your choice. And then we're also planning on doing 1 in Onekama and up in Calava at their library. So Sensory Wall is an interactive art installation designed to engage people of all abilities through tactile, audio, auditory, and visual elements. It kind of gives, there's been a need seen for like special needs kids to have something, you know, at the playgrounds for them, and this is kind of where the project came about. it's something that they can do, but people of all abilities can enjoy it. It's a pretty cool concept. So why am I here today? Step one, approval. We are looking for your guys' approval for permission in installing a sensory art wall. So you guys can identify maybe what locations you see would be fit. Step two is to partner with the local artists. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback on artists that want to contribute and do this. So it kind of has a local flair to it. And, you know, you can add your own local flair. Some themes we have thought about is like a woodlands theme, a water theme for some of the ones that are nearby water. And then we also thought about one to kind of touch on the history of the area, like a logging theme. And then, yeah, step three is installment of the sensory boards. That's kind of what it will look like. Of course, that's very, it's just wood, 2x4s. But it's about 3x5, 3x6, some places go in a park. Okay, so we've chosen your guys' locations because we feel like it would be one of the best places. High traffic, it's visible to visitors and people in the community. Do we know where the locations are in the city? I'm drawing a blank on it at the
Oh,
moment.
that's okay. We were thinking of one being along the Riverwalk, and we're not sure where that would be placed, especially right now with the construction and stuff like that that's happening. But then another, what's at the beach, somewhere along the beach or along the cement by the beach. So those are kind of two locations that we're asking if it would be doable if we could put those up there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So by hosting an Art for All sensory wall, you will be helping build a more connected, inclusive, and vibrant community. And here are some reasons why it might be a good idea to have a sensory wall. Celebrates local talent. The artists, they'll have a little shout out for them. It's going to enhance our community. It's going to educate and inspire kids of all abilities, and especially the ones that sometimes are left behind, unfortunately. It's going to foster inclusivity, and it will be supported by local sponsors, kind of following that same sponsorship model that other leadership groups have done in the past. So we have been promoting this through a variety of channels to get the word out. Print media coverage, social media campaigns. We have a couple leadership members that are really savvy at the social media marketing. I wish I was more gifted at that. And we also are doing live community events, which I remember, if I'm remembering correctly, we are doing an event at the Outsider, celebrity bartending, and that will be February 20th, 21st.
This Sunday.
I can get you guys a day, and I'll send it to Teresa. So you can go to the Manistee Area Leadership Program page on Facebook. Carmen does a very good job at keeping that updated. So to follow the progress of it and check in on fundraising events and such, you can go to the Manistee Area Leadership Program Facebook page. So by agreeing to host a sensory wall at your location, you'll be partnering with our not only our cohort but also our a local artist to incorporate these sensory features. And then it will be designed to engage everyone in our community. And we hope to have these done by the summer of 2025. Open for June, July in there. So it gets a lot of the summer traffic and we can keep our momentum rolling. And then we kind of touched on the two above, but we are trying to design these to be as low maintenance as possible, so it minimizes upkeep on your part. We're thinking about doing steel versus wood. We're really trying to maximize the lifespan of these sensory boards. So yeah, thank you so much. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I forgot business cards, but you can check the county website and find all my contact information. If you have any questions, just let me know. Let Teresa know. And, yeah.
One comment, maybe we should run this by, if you don't mind, through the Parks Commission too, and with the Beach Master Plan. They're doing a presentation tonight, and they've worked hours and hours, days, months, year, on this plan. So I think I would want their blessing on this and help with the location. And maybe, does someone look at the art before it's all done? Is there a jury, or, and I'm not saying it has to be juried art, I'm sure these are gonna be nice, but it's permanent, so.
You guys are putting it in there, so I'd say you guys would get final say. We haven't really gotten too into the details with that, but at the end of the day, it's being put where you guys want, so you guys should.
Yeah, I think we
have
want
a
to run
say.
it. And then are these, do they leave them up in the winter? Are these, or do I have to take them down, or is?
Yeah, we're planning on doing it year round,
Okay,
so they'll be able to stay outside.
okay, thank you.
Don't need anything concrete today, but think it over, bring it to your boards and committees, and yeah. Just want to get it out in front of you guys.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Consideration of the Manistee Downtown Development Authority TIF financing amendment. The Manistee Downtown Development Authority, DDA, approved an amendment to their development and tax increment financing plan during their November 13th, 2024 regular meeting. The plan amendment adds a section outlining a new TIF gap financing tool. This allows the DDA to help finance house-related development costs for projects in the DDA district. At this time, council could take action to approve the amended DDA development and tax increment financing plan. Is there a motion?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Do you want to talk a little bit? Maybe tell us.
Sure. I just wanted to come up and see if you had any questions regarding the amendment. This is a program that the conversation had begun about implementing this program before I was the Economic Development Director at the Manistee Area Chamber of Commerce, which I started at 9 months ago. And so thank you for the positive vote. This is something the DDA board feels very strongly about, that, construction costs and being in a historical district and having a housing crisis, being able to increase our toolbox of incentives that we're able to offer people when there is a project on a property that may be a legacy problem in our community. And if this is a program that can help some of these projects cross the finish line and materialize, it's just a fantastic thing. So I really appreciate the support. Is there any questions regarding the program? Lainey, I know you asked about the verbiage that was implemented about at the city's discretion rather than the verbiage at the DDA's discretion. And the reason for that is it's much like a brownfield application that happens in the DDA district. Even though the DDA is the one agreeing to forfeit their capture, it's ultimately a choice of city council to do with what they like with those future tax dollars. Is there any other questions?
Well, like I asked you before the meeting about, is there a limit on?
Yeah, so this program isn't asking for a certain year amount of future TIF capture. This is a tool that, when implemented, the duration of the tool will be determined by the individual applications for it. So if we have a project that is asking to get reimbursed X amount of dollars and it's going to take 10 years, it'll be a 10-year TIF for that particular project. And that's another reason why it's at the city's discretion, because there is a duration that the DDA exists in. And if a project outlives that duration, it would then become the city's obligation, or more so just the city would be the one kind of participating in that program that the DDA began. It would have to close out that project. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Heather, would you please take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasky.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Keck.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of amending the city's personal policies and procedures manual to conform to the requirements of Public Act 338 of 2018, the Earned Sick Time Act. Public Act 338 of 2018, the Earned Sick Time Act, was a voter-initiated law that was passed by legislature and is effective February 21st, 2025. The city labor attorney has reviewed the city's personal policies and procedures manual and made changes to ensure the city is in compliance with the new law. At this time, council could take action to amend the city's personal policies and procedures manual to be in compliance with Public Act 218, the Earned Sick Time Act. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I had one question. On the sick pay, are we saying, and I read that in there, there's 6 months full pay, and then it's followed by another 6 months of 2/3 pay? Is that correct? And is that in a change from what's currently?
Councilmember Lasky, that refers to our self-funded sick and accident policy. So there's a program for the non-union and typically the union employees, and there's a separate program from the department heads. That hasn't changed. It's been that way ever since I've worked for the city, and even before it was introduced when Ben Byfoss was the city manager. So that has not changed. The only thing that changed is the implementing language for this particular law. I do want to point out that it's very likely the legislature changes this down the road or even postpones it, but in order to be in compliance, we wanted to make sure we got it in front of council ahead of the due date.
Thank you. Is that, Ed, one last question. Is that a disability policy that would pay that, or is that our city funding that would pay that?
It's self.
That word to use.
It's self-funded. We don't pay a
Self-funded.
premium. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not an insurance policy. We're not a third-party sick?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Heather, would you please take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasky.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Keck.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga. Yes. Motion approved.
Consideration of ordinance 25-01 to amend Chapter 662, Peace Disturbances of the City of Manistee, Michigan Codified Ordinances. Ordinance 25-01 would change ordinance 662.01B1 to state the following: be under the influence of alcohol or any narcotic in a public place and who is endangering directly the safety of another person or of property or acting unreasonably to annoy or disturb the quiet, comfort, and repose of people in the vicinity. As an ordinance, 2 separate readings are required. If this ordinance is introduced at this time, it could be adopted at the next regular meeting. At this time, this council could take action to introduce ordinance 25-01, amending Chapter 662, Peace Disturbances. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that one.
Any discussion on this?
Josh, what is the difference from our old ordinance?
I was just going to ask the same question. How did
Speaking of
last
the
one
language,
read?
so from time to time, we have to look at our city ordinance, especially our criminal ones, to make sure they're consistent with recent case law. And so that language is a recommendation from the city attorney, which makes it more consistent with case law in Michigan. Is that pretty?
Yep, that's exactly correct. Some case laws kind of called into question the existing wording of your ordinance and our ability to charge under that wording, so we're just recommending a change, an update.
Councilmember Grabowski, I think if you recall back when we worked the road a long time ago, wasn't it if you were intoxicated in a public place, no matter what, you did not have to be endangering anybody or anything, just being intoxicated in a public place, you were...
Intoxicated, public, you could arrest. So the case law has evolved since then, so it's my job to make sure, once in a while, we make sure ordinances are compliant with case law. So.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
More questions? Heather, would you please take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasky.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Keck.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of approval to participate in the county household hazardous waste disposal program. Each year, a countywide household hazardous waste disposal program is offered. The committee has set the rates for each participating community at 45 cents per capita. The contribution for the city of Manistee is $2,816.55 for this year. At this time, council could take action to approve the contract and agreement for services with the Manistee, Mason, and Oceana Conservation Districts and authorize the city manager to execute this agreement. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Any discussion? Heather, would you please take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasky.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Keck.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruzga.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Now we will have a report from Mr. A.J. Johnson, Republic Services.
You're back.
Yes, hasn't been that long, but I see new faces. So I appreciate your time today. Republic Services appreciates the partnership that's been created over the many years of service we've provided this community. So like I just stated, I know there's some new members in council, and so I just want to introduce myself again for, so you know who your representative is for Republic Services out of the Manistee landfill. Just hit up or
Down.
Down.
down. Okay. Just picture my wife, kids, family. I mean, that's what I live for. I've been born, raised West Michigan. I graduated from Davenport University, Bachelor of Business Administration, major in management. Been married, feels like forever. Get along well. Great family. Hobbies, I enjoy the outdoors, fishing, hunting, camping, traveling, spending time with the family, going on spring breaks. Was just up snowshoeing in Leelanau County over the weekend with my wife, so things like that. I've been with Republic Services since 2013. It's been a great company to work for, great local leadership. I couldn't have picked a better group to further my career with. Proud to be Manistee's Municipal Services Manager. Every year it seems we give a kind of an update of where services stand as far as carded collection, bag collection. Seems pretty stable from last year to this year. Tonnages, though, have increased about 5%. I mean, we put this in perspective. I put it into pounds this year just to give you a real good grasp of how much waste we collect here in the city. Roughly 5.3 million tons of waste we collected in the city in the year of 2024. So much bigger number when you put it in pounds comparative to tons. I think it speaks a little bit more how much volume is actually coming out. I know there was a change in the single stream recycling container. Used to be at the Catholic Central there. Obviously closed down, had to make some changes with the city. Moved it over to Veteran Oaks Drive. Due to the closure, tonnages are continually increasing, up 7% from year prior, 107,000 pounds of material recycled out of that unit in 2024. Just some changes as far as DDA dumpster program. With the closure of MCC, some of the things that were happening with the cardboard, the businesses, we really felt the grunt of that. We did implement a cardboard dumpster, as you can see, with the sky blue lids for some of those businesses downtown. With sky blue lids, just easier identified. And they are empty twice a week, and the Manistee County landfill is also open for residents to come in and bring their cardboard. This is more for the businesses downtown. I'm not sure how much council knew about it. These aren't actual pictures from your fish, but looked very similar when I seen your pictures. I know you had a service provider that did collect those fish guts and piles, and service somehow kind of got interrupted, and Republic and the city were able to partner in a quick, timely fashion, allowing the city to dispose of about 122,000 pounds of fish in a matter a few days. That's how much backup there was. And so it's nice to know that, hey, we're right down the the road and are able to partner in a time of need like this. I thought it was something good, positive to point out in the partnership. Every year we provide and give back to the residents of the city with a special event, cleanup. Helps remove items in the city that can't be placed in the recycling bin, also can't be put in a container, a curbside container. So in 2024, we did have a tire event, but also did add in partnership with the city and our NRBC, a spring cleanup event, kind of tied them together, and I think it went really well. It brought a lot of participants in. We collected 386 tires, about 21,000 pounds of bulk items that we were able to put in that truck and compact it. We had that truck filled up and had to return for a little bit more. So it was a good event, good turnout. I think it hopefully helped with some of the blight. I know I heard some comments, this is a good trailer to be coming in because he's had that in front of his house for a while. So I thought it was a successful event. In 2025, we've looked at the trend. We've done tires a few times, metal, paint, shred it. Some have been more popular than others. But I think that we talked today with Bill, and we were going to propose paint with another special spring cleanup event, kind of tie them together, give people an opportunity to bring that waste in there. And we're looking at a date of May 3rd. We've checked our calendars. Seems like that would be a date that would work for all parties involved. In the summer, something I did, I was asked by the Manistee Environmental Action Collaborative to come do a presentation on recycling, which I absolutely took advantage of on June 19th. It gave me an opportunity to talk to some of your residents out of your city and their desire to recycle and best practices. So I got to hear some feedback. The presentation went very well. I got to answer a lot of questions to your residents, and what I walked away out of that is there is a strong interest in more recycling options in this community, and there are a lot of questions. So it gave me an opportunity to just speak and talk about some of the pros of recycling. I bring this up. These next slides are going to be something that I have every year, but I think we all feel CPI, inflation. It's over the last 3 years, it has been higher than it's been in quite some time. Something that we, even the reports in January 2025, they're saying it raised more than what was expected. So I just like to always give a snapshot of, hey, what we're facing. Our best tool to measure out of this report is water, sewer, trash, and collection services. I just gave you a snapshot of a 3-year trend, 2022, 2023. You're seeing a 3-year average of close to 5%. Meanwhile, the city's contract that we're under today has a 3.5% escalator. So I'm just giving you an idea of where the market's going, where the contract has been. I'm really big on this. Republic Services, though we are local team, been here a long time, worked hard. Republic Services is a nationwide company, and your partner has very aggressive goals for sustainability, and we take our safety talent that we hire in, our communities, our climate leadership very seriously as a company, and they set the tone for us locally. And there's going to be some things I just want to point out, and I just want you to understand, we have goals, we're going towards them. This is our pathway to a better partner for the community. Our business today, think about this as a company, 1.4 million hours of safety training. We're adding more cameras into trucks. There's a lot here. These numbers up, I presented this same slide last year. Our employee engagement scores are up from last year. Percents up on racial and ethnic diversity hirings, more veterans hired. $331 million more in sustainability investment as a company. So I just, more grant, 109 more grants given, 1.2 million from prior year, and people positively impacted through our charitable giving. So we're making strides towards these goals that our company steers us toward. You know, these are just charts, and you know, I just got word in 2024 Republic, our goal is always 0 fatalities. We have a lot of drivers, and it's my understanding we met that in 2024. But safety, as far as how it pertains to the city, is what I want to just focus on here. We're measuring these things. Incident reduction, you know, how many hours do our drivers drive? How many accidents actually happen once that incident occurrence? And we're looking to reduce it. How we're going to reduce it is by training. We're providing your local team in Manistee 36 initiatives. We're running a 30, 60, 90-day program right now for our drivers. You know, if you don't get in an accident, hey, you're getting lunches, you're getting entered into prizes, you know, gift cards, things like that, trying to promote safety. You know, we have morning crew outs with our drivers where we're talking about best practices every day. Company-wide accident. Hey, here's an accident that just happened in Indiana. What did they do wrong? How could they have improved that? And so we're having these conversations daily. Where our supervisors are going out daily and watching our drivers. They don't know it, and then they'll stop them and say, hey, you know, Ben is your driver. Hear a lot of good things about Ben. Ben, you did this well. It's snowing, but I can see your brake lights. Your rear view camera, you can see in that. We're going out and we're checking these things daily. We're having supervisors ride along with these drivers at least 2 times a week. Tomorrow we have an area safety day where I will personally be out with a driver, watching, observing, you know, seeing if I can bring anything to the table to help with safety. So I want to spend some time on that slide to just help you understand the dedication we have to safety and safely providing service to your community. Your local talent, 60 employees. You know, you got a breakdown of City of Manistee employees, Filer Township, Manistee Township, the county. 25% of our workforce there at Manistee County Landfill is local to this community. Snapshot to the left is just an overview of Republic as a company, you know, and the diversity we have in our hirings, and something that doesn't even show is 11% of that is veterans, so it isn't. We strive to hire veterans as much as we can. How do we help to continue to strive, provide good jobs for these local workers? You know, we're wanting to engage workforce. 2 times a year, we're asking for their input, running a third-party survey. They're giving us that information, and believe me, people, when you give them an opportunity to blindly say something without their name on it, they say it. And then that gives us opportunity to review opportunities for improvement and implement changes to try. So we're measuring these scores. We have a goal to improve. You can see on this trend, you got a U.S. average where Republic Services marks high above because we take these surveys very seriously. You know, this I'll touch. It's important. You know, it is the future. You know, we have goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our buildings, our equipment, our landfill, our fleet. It's something we measure, we watch, we have goals, and do everything we can to try and help with that. This is another big one. I just wanted to recap what we've done locally. Republic's goal is to impact 45 million people by 2030. That's a really big number. When I think about our local presence in that number, 45 million, I keep a report every year of where we donate, what we contribute to. And you see here just a highlight of some of the events we support, such as the Manistee National Forest Festival, the Festival of Trees Gold sponsor, Tight Lines for Troops, Stomp Out Cancer. We contribute funds, services, items for raffle drawings, money. We support local scholarship funds. There's quite, out of all the municipalities we service out of our Manistee and Pearson office, Manistee absolutely surpasses every municipal contract we offer as far as our donations and community involvement. Over $11,000 in donations of services, funds to Manistee area residents and through this partnership. So I think that speaks volumes to the local team here at Manistee and our commitment to your services. Want to kind of end here, our contract, it's a 5-year deal, comes up June 30th. We're open for negotiation. We take pride in providing service for the city. We want nothing more than to continue this partnership into the future. We are certainly up for negotiations. Again, just really want to say thank you for your partnership. Here's some accolades of Republic Services as a company that we've received here just recently. Some high honoring marks there. And just thank you, can't thank you enough. And are there any questions for myself or Public Services?
Yes, AJ, how does your prices compare with other?
They're competitive. I've done a lot of bids over the last couple years. They're always competitive. Republic, I think, brings the best value. If you have company A and company B and they're very similar, some of the things that I highlight, I'd like to think set Republic apart from some of the competition, but we're always competitive. There's times we're less, there's times we're more. Just in the beginning of 2024, we were awarded Weber Township, north of Baldwin's contract. We were $250,000 more over the 3-year span, but they still chose to choose Republic Services because of our reliability and safety. So it depends on what the city and council wants to see out of their service. But we are always competitive.
So people ask me because of your increase with the different totes that you're gonna put out for between the paper, the glass.
Yeah, we did present an extension offer with curbside recycling. We feel very confident that those prices are competitive. They're as low as we've had approved for a city in my 3 years as far as returns go. We value this partnership. They were as best, they were good in our eyes and in the market's eyes, in my opinion.
What other cities have these curbsides?
What, curbside recycling?
Different totes.
Just trash and recycling, or just recycling, or?
What's your trash?
Oh, trash? I mean, we have Frankfurt, Cadillac, Ludington, Pure Marquette Township, Filer Township. We have Brown Township. I didn't bring my list with me, but we have 36 municipal contracts between Pearson, which is our team as well, and Manistee. We have the city of Big Rapids. That's probably our biggest contract they have. They just bid out services a couple years ago. Republic Services was the best value. So I find that when you bid service, could you have a company always willing to undercut the next? Possibly. Is it close? I'm sure it will be. But you know what? I think the best value is Republic Services. So Benzonia, Honor, and I'm just listing off the top of my head here, but I didn't say Frankfurt, but those are some of the local communities here. Obviously, the city of Manistee.
As we're mandated to move to single stream,
Mm-hmm.
those totes, right now you put all your garbage in it, theoretically, and is there going to be ever an option for a smaller garbage tote? Because if you're recycling, you certainly don't need that huge tote. If you're
Well, we prefer, trash collection is weekly. Recycling service was proposed at every other week. So we don't anticipate the same volume. And I know the city pays on tons disposed of at the county landfill. And you would like to think that with recycling implemented, those tons the city is paying for will go down as trash is diverted out of the landfill and to the recycling center. So, I mean, you're gonna see hopefully some costs go down a little bit and the tonnage disposed and hopefully help absorb some of that cost on the recycling side.
A lot of the time I go to the single stream recycling and like people don't follow the rules.
Education is very, very important. It's contaminated recycling is a big problem in the United States in general. Something I would welcome all of you guys to go look at is Recycling Simplified. It's a Republic Services video that we've put out to try and help educate our customers on how to properly recycle. And I think it's a great video.
Anybody else? Thanks, AJ.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we will have a discussion on the beach master plan. Sean, I don't know who's coming up. Sean, Cynthia? Or just, okay. He was moving, so I didn't know.
I'm just speaking by myself. I was like, well, you want to say anything? Say hello. Or you just wanna hang out?
One thing I will say, because Cindy won't say it, I just want to introduce Cindy Todd. She's our director of our planning group and with Spicer Group. She's a leader in our company, and she runs a wonderful group downstate and up here. A lot of you have seen Cindy before, and she's put a lot of hard work into this. I think some of you are aware of that, a lot of time, and I just wanted to say thank you to her for her work, so, because she wouldn't say it herself.
That's so nice. That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you guys for very much having us here and review our draft. Now, full warning, there's a lot of slides, and I will try and go through it efficiently because at the end is really the plan, but I really wanted to give an idea to you guys how we got here, and kind of how we gathered information and all that kind of stuff. So this document will be available so you guys can review it in more detail, but there are just a lot of slides and I don't want to, we'll go over them, but if you've got questions, we can stop on them, but the beginning of them and just kind of how we got to this point. Okay. But first of all, I really want to let you guys know, I mean, working with, we work with communities and cities and villages and townships all over the state. And just working with the city of Manistee and just the energy and the excitement that everyone has about the beach master plan and just the involvement of our steering committee and our stakeholders. I mean, it's just, everybody's just very, very proud. Just very, very proud of the beaches, and during our stakeholder meetings, I mean, every group, everybody talked about it, and it's very positive. I'm assuming everybody knows that, but it was a great group and very fun to work with. So we'll go through our presentation.
Down arrow.
Oh, down arrow. Okay. Just to give a brief overview, the project scope, we looked at North Beach, Man-Made Lake, Fifth Avenue Beach, and First Street Beach and Douglas Recreation Area. And our master plan is an update of your master plan that you have from 2013. And so it was our goal to look at the information that you had gathered, information that had been implemented, and kind of identify, what is the future going to look like for the next 10 years. And your master plan's a vision, is a vision for the future of the park. And it's a vision of where we sit today. And that vision can change as time changes, as, the lake line changes. So, I just encourage the commission and just the city to continually look at this plan, not just on it every 10 years, but to look on it really on an annual basis and just really see, elements and things that can change on it, because it's a fluid document. It's your vision. So it's definitely fluid. And so the images and ideas that we came up with in this plan and were gathered from all of our steering committees and our stakeholders, but those change and people change and times change. So that's just my little thought process there. The project task just went through a little bit of what the project task was. We looked at our existing site. We had a lot of public community input. We had our public open houses. We had our stakeholder work sessions. We had public survey. Now, as a reminder, this is funded by the MEDC, portion of it for our resiliency for the master plan. And so we definitely had to make sure that in our master plan and in our findings, and in some of our survey questions, and I just put this up here, this is just the resiliency in some of the tasks and things that we looked at that we had put in the grant. of elements that we were going to be identifying within our master plan. Public input, just to give you a little bit of feedback on the public input, we started out with, working with the city, coming up with our steering committee. And the idea is the steering committee was part of the process from the beginning all the way to the end. They helped us, they represent people from all over the city here on the council. They provide direction and guidance as we identified our stakeholders, and then assisted with communication as we developed these plans, to all other different interest groups. The stakeholder work sessions were 2 days. We brought groups in for about an hour and a half. It was May 8th to May 9th. And a variety of groups throughout the city, they came in, and the idea is we sat and chatted with them and said, try to gather some feedback, some input from them. How are you using the parks now? What would you like to see? And from those stakeholder meetings, really developed our survey questions, and then also developed at the open houses, we had boards that had pictures of images of ideas to happen within the park. And that really came out of our stakeholder meetings and the feedback and the input that we received from those stakeholders. We then did our public open house, which was June 1st. We had it at Fifth Avenue, and we had it at First Street, Fifth Avenue in the morning, First in the afternoon, and then we had our public survey, which was launched about that same time. So if you weren't able to make the public open houses, you were able to have the survey, which was a QR code, and we had flyers and all those kind of things all over and on our site and our websites, the city's website, to take the survey. And the goal is the survey is not more than maybe five minutes, so people they would take the survey and not put it down, just so we get some good feedback from them. So we're going to go over, just real quick, I just want a good shout out to our steering committee, an amazing group of individuals. Our stakeholder attendees, just wanted to kind of show you a little bit of a list of the attendees. A big shout out to everybody who was able to participate. And of course, everybody was very fun, but of course the students coming in from the middle school and the high school really helped give us a different view and a vision of what we were, what else to consider. Because they weren't necessarily big survey takers. In fact, very minimal took the survey. But they were very informative during our stakeholder meetings. This is just, so during the stakeholder meetings, we asked questions and gathered information. These bullets are really kind of the common theme that we heard from the 2 days of meetings. What people were looking for, things they were seeing. So this gives you a list of the elements that also drove, like I said, our public open house, our images on our board, and our survey questions. These are just some fun images of the open house. We had it set up, if you see, do I have a pointer? Oh, I do, what? Okay, so the boards were set up, so in the middle, we represented all 4 parks, and then we had these 4 image boards. I'm gonna show you real quick what those image boards look like. So the participants in the open house could walk in, and we gave them dots and said, you're at Man-Made Lake. What would you like to see at Man-Made Lake? And we had all of these images, and what would you like to see at those at Man-Made Lake? What would you like to see at First Street, Fifth Avenue, and North Beach. So that was kind of what public input, more fun images of the public input. We walked around those days with clipboards. We just had clipboards that we walked up to people. They were taking the survey, they were putting the dots on the boards, but then we also took notes and said, just general comments, what are you thinking, what are you seeing? And at Fifth Avenue, just general comments as we looked at our notes of our feedback, people wanted to see sidewalks and connections, possibly pickleball courts. Some said just leave it as is, and said definitely wanted to keep the beach views. And so those were people as we walked around at that open house. And then the same with the open house in First Street Beach. People had indicated they wanted to see sidewalk connections all around the park. They thought food trucks would be fun and interesting, a lot of fun, leave as is, and then signage and connectivity and wayfinding information was also an element. These are quick slides of what the boards look like that the community at the open house, was looking at when we're putting dots on elements that they would like to see. Again, each one of these elements are, came out of our stakeholder meeting. So we had 2 boards of beach and park elements and amenities that people would like to see. And then we had a board of trail amenities for connectivity and different opportunities there. And then as well as out of the stakeholder meeting, there was a conversation about what do we really want to do something year-round at the park. What can we do this year-round? So we started discussing multi-purpose pavilions and what does that mean? And what does that mean? Is it some type of winter activity, an event space? So we could have whatever it might be. This shows skating, yoga, basketball, events, weddings, whatever it might be. So those are conversations that we thought was important to get in front of the open house to kind of get feedback on that as well. This is a quick survey. This is a quick tally of all of the dots and what basically the dots told, what people at the open house told us. And I can go through this just super briefly. I mean, I think on the trail amenities, really a lot of people wanted to see routes and accessible routes and connectivity and signage. Multi-purpose pavilion focused on winter activities, food trucks, shows and activities, and those are really more focused on the Fifth Avenue and Douglas Park, Man-Made Lake, and North Beach. Much when it came to the multipurpose facility, very minimal, not quite as aggressive. And then the beach amenities, a big highlight, people really wanted to see shade. People come and there's just not that many trees out there. And we would really have some type of additional shade out at the beaches. So the idea of shade, sand volleyball, splash pads, something with court services, tennis or pickleball. And of course, everybody loves the fire pits, so people also wanted more fire pits. But that was just a tally of the open house events. And then these are really small, but it's in your packet, and so you'll have it. These were the survey questions, and then the results of those survey questions. We had 583 people take it, and one partial. So that means they didn't finish it. So there's 584, which I think is a great number. It's a good number for a survey. Excuse me. And this just goes through the tally of the answers, some of the questions that we received back. And these questions, like I said earlier, really came out of our stakeholder meetings, our conversations with our steering committee to make sure that these were the survey questions that were good questions that we really were looking and wanted to know some of the answers to. Okay, that was fast, but that's kind of how we gathered information. The whole point of that was just a lot of the beginning part of this was just making sure we understood where we were community-wise, what people were looking for. So after we had the open houses and then we had the survey and had the information, we got together with the steering committee and we put out aerials of each of the parks and had pieces of all these different types of elements and, whether they be, tennis courts or whatever that might be. They were more like a color form thing, and I don't know if everybody knows what color form is, but basically it was cut to scale and it was on a big board and we could all lay stuff out. So we did that. It was fun. It was a fun activity. We looked at the survey results and we went through each of the parks and said, what do you guys think about this? And took some pictures of them. And so with that information from the steering committee is really how the next vision of the draft of these plans evolved. Oops, wrong way. Oh, no, this is the right way. Never mind. So it's going to go North Beach, Man-Made Lake, Fifth Avenue, and then Douglas Street and First Street Beach. So this image, and I know you guys, if you don't have these, we can definitely get you all these plans. I know staff has them, and we can get you copies of everything. They're definitely in this report. But this is a draft of the idea at North. Oh.
It's back. It just.
So if it looks like that now, what do you think?
It just has to play with us a little bit.
Okay, I won't try not to talk with my hand. There we go. Oh, okay, so don't look. Okay, we can tell stories. Okay. All right, so North Beach. So our North Beach access. North Beach access, as it is today, what we really heard was if you could get us a little bit more parking and some trail access and a little bit of a trailhead, that would be good to go. So not a whole lot more than that, and that's really what this plan shows. If you see here at the bottom, we're not on our property. So if this was something to be developed, we'd have to consider some type of an easement, but it's just a little bit more parking on both sides. The yellow on all of these plans, you'll see the yellow, and the idea is this is a trail connection system that we start at North Beach and we take ourselves all the way down. We take ourselves from North, man-made, down to Fifth, and all the way over to First Street Beach. But that's, the yellow is the trail system. We do have an existing trail system out there right now. We're just recommending it gets widened a little bit, and then just a couple improvements to our decking, and then a fun little overlook, one of those little overlook binoculars. But it's a pretty simple site. Theo's recommendation is to put a restroom there. We're thinking a prefabricated restroom, which are made out of concrete. And it would really make it a trailhead. So it would have signage, restroom, bike, changing tire stations, and all that kind of good stuff. So that's what was proposed here at North Beach. Like I said, a lot of comments were really, don't put a lot more parking in, keep it as clean and simple. And there was a lot of comments that we don't want a lot of people to know about this park because it's so fun. But a couple more parking spaces would be good. So that was this idea. Our next is man-made lake, and we heard a lot of mixed conversation on this. Different types of groups, different age groups that used it, what they wanted to see. At the end of this, as we met with the steering committee, we talked about, this trail system around this natural lake, and what kind of impacts would that trail system have? And it was very important, as we discussed it, that we're going to show a trail system around this lake. It's going to be, whether it be a boardwalk type of system, or maybe it's some type of a Moby mat system, but there was a look and a drive for some type of accessibility around the lake, and so that's what this plan is showing. It's showing us access out to Lake Michigan, showing an overlook to Lake Michigan, making sure that all of these, very natural trails were, preserving all of our natural habitats and any of our species that were out there. It did show a little overlook right there at the entrance as we came in. And then in addition, we have our existing parking lot, but then we recommended, adding on to that parking, and then also they're providing pavilion and a small pavilion, and then again, a restroom that could have a prefabricated restroom, and the trailhead. So you'll see each one of these parks will have a trailhead with signage, connectivity, and definitely you'll see that consistent throughout. So that was Man-Made Lake. We can go back and talk about these if you guys like. I just wanted to make sure we got through them all. So then the next is Fifth Avenue Beach. And if you look at Fifth Avenue Beach, again, you can see the yellow is our sidewalk system, our trail connecting system, and that is throughout the entire park. The existing parking lot remains, and we just add additional parking. A big conversation at the open house was, we wanted connectivity, we wanted to be able to maybe do some easier drop-off, and that's what this plan shows. It shows some additional parking areas, and then additional drop-off, has a trailhead at this as well. And any of the areas that's disturbed out there right now, we really haven't shown any more disturbance to the existing, that's what's already is disturbed. What we did show was where the existing slides were. One of our survey questions was, what do you think about the existing equipment? And even in our steering committee, or our stakeholder, we talked about the existing playground, and the comment came, please don't touch the slides, please don't touch the rocket, but everything else can get replaced. Basically, it was kind of that in a nutshell. But replace it, but don't take away from our view shed, but keep it as simple as possible. So that's really what this is. This is just showing additional playground equipment, and then we're preserving those existing slides. And the orange and the teal type of color, that the response and the request for shade is what those are supposed to be showing. Just, shade structures, and if you look over here to the right, that kind of gives you an idea. Just a simple shade structure that would be up during the summertime, and then it could come down in the winter time structure-wise, but it's more the fabric, easier to, it wouldn't be basically a shingle type of structure. It'd have a little bit more color, a little bit more playful, a bit simple, kind of fit in that terrain a little bit. And then again, our trail system connecting us all the way out to the lighthouse. The really kind of off, kind of mustard color was just additional Moby mats as well. All right. Okay, so First Street Beach. So First Street Beach is set up into two sets of plans as you look at this, and so we'll talk about the beginning of it. But again, as you look at this, and this is a little hard to see on this slide, but as you look at this, the yellow once again shows our connection and our trail system throughout. So the whole theme of this is to show trails all the way on both sides of the road as much as we can, and getting people safely across the roads, and being able to get them from our North Pavilion all the way down to our dog park. Just a safe connection. So let's see, there we go. So up on the northern end of First Street, the conversation of our parking lot, our existing parking lot, we need all those parking spaces, and then first of all, we tried to throw a trail connection, north and south, east and west, so we can get people through it safely, and also showing more green space, some more bioretention areas, really making it a bit more of a, besides just a lot of asphalt, a space that would provide a little bit more, let's say, biodiversity type of materials. The conversation about this parking lot also possibly being, having some type of impervious materials, whatever that might be, not necessarily in the whole area, but really to help with, runoff and sediment control and stormwater management. And that was the conversation for this parking lot. Also on this plan, we show the location up here. We talk about, there's a lot of discussion about some type of a restroom off of the Lions Pavilion, and I know the idea, these prefabricated ones, actually you can make them lockable, and they can lock them and unlock them remotely. But the idea was if we wanted to make that a prefabricated one, or if we wanted to build one off of that, because we talked about this becoming a bit more of a event space, that if a restroom would be very helpful there. And then we also showed another pavilion, prefabricated pavilion on the north side, or excuse me, on the south side of the parking lot, as another opportunity for a restroom location. Now the asterisks, the ongoing conversation that we had a lot of conversations about was, with the amphitheater, and where would the amphitheater go? And these star locations, as we talked about this with the steering committee. And we talked about it, the amphitheater, band shell, stage location, just to make sure when we put it in, that where it goes, that it considers, the views to the water, and that's the preservation of our natural dune area, and that it's accessible. And so you'll see we have just these asterisks on the plan really to indicate those possible locations. I know down here then, as we come in off of First Street, the 2013 plan originally had this where it had the entrance to this existing parking lot, which is historic, had relocated it. And so this plan also shows that entrance being relocated with the idea as you came down First Street, your visual would be looking with like a low profile vegetation and sign over it, and you would see the lake as a backdrop, and then screen a little bit of the parking, but you could still see the lake as the backdrop, and your focal point wouldn't be the parking lot. And that was the idea. I think there's a lot of on this as a draft, a lot of conversations that are happening on this. But that was the idea. That was the idea behind that. And then we'll get to the southern portion of, First Street Beach. Oof. And same thing. So as we come through here, preserving our slides, putting in playground equipment and swings very similar to what we have out there, providing some type of shade structures. We also discussed, if you can see over here, multi-generational opportunities. A lot of conversations with, instead of just younger or 10 to 15-year-olds playing on the equipment, what kind of multi-generational opportunities are there? There's the cornhole, there's the, there's checkerboards, there's ping pong tables, and they're concrete, and it's a lot of people that are really starting to use those. So those are considerations. We also showed something fun. We talked about art in the park. We just had art in the park here earlier, conversation. You know, we talked about this interactive art. Now, we showed it as a fun butterfly, and I know that's, you know, be fun if it was more of one of our birds, but it was just the idea that when you could see light through it and you could see the lake behind it. Picture opportunities, everybody wants a picture with the lake behind them, but you know, just something a little bit more interactive and a little bit more interesting, some opportunities for art in the park. And then we went through here and we took the liberty right now with the idea that we would expand the asphalt and make it wider so that if we had the luxury, we would make all of those 90-degree parking. So we'd have enough room in there for parking. We proposed enlarging the dog park. And as well as we came around, we looked at the areas. Our students were very vocal, I think is the word, very vocal, looking for opportunities of things to do. They wanted tetherball, they wanted just to sit and hang out, they wanted workout stations. So you'll see we have areas for hammocks, areas for more you know, multi-generational. We showed areas for workout equipment. We kept the rocket in the location, but then around the rocket, we removed the existing other equipment that was there and proposed updated equipment, trying to mimic the similarities of what was out there. We showed a splash pad, kept the existing basketball court, and then this area connecting to our existing playground. Then we showed the workout area. We showed additional parking, giving some opportunities to pull parking through and connect all the way through, some parking all the way through to Cherry Street. And then we talked about where was it, you know, about the multi-use pavilion. Now, during our stakeholder meeting, there was conversation about the baseball fields, and the conversation had come up that the two fields, one of the fields wasn't used as much. And so with the idea of, you know, where would the multi-purpose pavilion opportunity be, this plan shows this in the place of where the second ball field is. There's a lot of discussion. I think the idea of this is to show this multi-purpose opportunity when we think about seasonal use and we think about it's off of the lake. If we're going to do things like skating, cross-country skiing, whatever we would do in this pavilion, and opportunities and events we would have year-round, the further we could have it off the lake, the better, and have some type of parking around it as well. So we showed it in this location. And then, again, sand volleyball, and I think I went through all of it. Now we did, just as a snippet, a couple snippets to show you guys, and I think I can do this, if I can do it with this. I need to make that play. Can you make that play?
Let's see.
So we just wanted to kind of show you guys visually what it would be like to be in that space a little bit. And so we've kind of put this together quickly. Yeah, there you go. Just kind of quickly. That's the hammock area. And so we're going to walk through here a little briskly, but we are going to walk through the space and show you a little bit of the hammock area, some of the cornhole, and walking ourselves through the space. And then in front of us, you'll see the playground, the new playground equipment, and then to the left, you'll see the rocket. And then we'll go to the next one. Bill, if you don't mind showing, oops, hang on a sec. And then that one is we're by the existing basketball courts, kind of show you how that would feel. Though that's where the workout equipment is in front of us. We kind of look to the left where our existing playground equipment is. Just to kind of let you see how that space feels a little bit. And then we just exit then over to the right. So there we go. So that was fast, very fast, and really wanted to present that to the council, you know, kind of digest it. We can talk about it now, we can talk about it whenever you guys like. Our next steps are to compile a report with all of basically put all of this into a document and then finalize the documents. So with that was fast. I don't know, Bill, if you have anything to say about it or any thoughts that you might have?
No, just thanks for all your work on it. I know, you know, we recently were recertified as a redevelopment ready community. This was paid for with funds from the MEDC because we are a redevelopment ready community. So they're excited about this project that we did this, and these are elements to consider that kind of help set us up. By no means are these things we're definitely going to do. They're just concepts, but I do think I commend Spicer, Cynthia, for your work to be inclusive of all comments with this project. So.
I don't know, Sean, Jeff? Jeff, you have anything to say? What?
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
I'll say something.
That's what I thought.
This is a fascinating process, and it was very interesting. I was on the consulting side the last time this was done, but it was fascinating to hear all the different perspectives from everybody in the community. And it's really hard to capture all that and put a plan together that everybody's going to approve and be really super excited about. So there may be elements in here that you don't agree with. There may be elements that you really love. But what Spicer really did is listen to everybody in all those different sessions and all those different means, whether it was face-to-face or the stakeholders or the public input sessions that we had, and try to encapsulate that and represent something on a piece of paper that kind of looks for what we all heard that the community is looking for. And you know, a couple of you are on the Parks Commission. Those things change every month. It seems like every few months the tide turns a little bit this way and a little bit that way. And so, you know, just give it some thought and on the plans, and there'll be decisions as come forward. And certainly we can't do all those things. But when that document, when I took this job and we had that last master plan in place, it made it so much easier for the Parks Commission and for city staff to then budget and prioritize and go out and get grants and start implementing some of those elements. So that's enough.
Jeff, did you take and consider on the second field, you want to put that auditorium? Do you want to, have you talked to the baseball people to see if they're happy with that?
Yeah, the city managers reached out to them. We've invited them to have some focused meetings on that. You know, the usage of those fields kind of ebbs and flows. I remember when I was a kid, both of those fields were almost every day, every evening. That's kind of come down a little bit. So this doesn't really say, let's take out the softball field. It's saying, if we gave up a softball field, here's something that we could have in return. And then as a community, we've got to decide what's best for everybody. But we plan on having those conversations with the MRA. There's a co-ed league right now. For years there wasn't, but now there's a co-ed league that started back up. And then certainly the senior softballs we have conversations with them constantly. So.
And the same kind of applies for the amphitheater too. That's why there's stars, because it's such a contentious thing in a lot of ways.
Well, it's dropped down in size a couple of times now.
Yeah.
Any other questions for them? No?
Cynthia did a great job. She was easy to work with, and she did listen to the people. And it's, like she explained, it's an ongoing, so she's more than welcome for any comments from this point on. So first time, if you've seen it, don't hesitate to call her fairly soon.
Yeah.
But give her a call. She's easy to work with.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you
good
for
rest
that.
of the evening. Oops.
Now we will have council training on Open Meetings Act from the city attorney.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So I was asked to provide some training on some legal topics of interest, and this is not intended as a deep dive into any of these, but kind of a high-level survey or summary, with the idea being that as specific issues arise, it kind of will trigger, you know, okay, this may be an Open Meetings Act issue, I better reach out to city staff or the city attorney for more guidance. So I'm going to be brief and high-level. But I want to talk about the Open Meetings Act, the Freedom of Information Act, and parliamentary procedure. And I did intentionally include abbreviated in parentheses, so don't worry. Open Meetings Act. So general rule is that all meetings of a public body must be open to the public unless an exemption specifically applies. So I guess to unpack that, you know, meeting is anytime there's a convening of a public body where a quorum is present, purpose of deliberating toward or rendering a decision on public policy. So that's important for some specific circumstances. Chance gatherings, not a meeting, not subject to the OMA. Attendance at conferences when you're all together at the MML, not subject to the OMA. Social gatherings, meetings with neighborhood groups or others, not subject to the OMA. There's no intent to deliberate on public policy. They're kind of just chance gatherings. But some meetings that are prohibited, advance meetings to deliberate regarding formal action, so any kind of straw votes by phone or anything like that would be prohibited by the OMA. Key item to consider is email discussions or text discussions regarding formal action to be taken. One-way communication between council members is fine, but anytime you're all together on an email chain, there shouldn't be any deliberation. So you have to be cautious with the reply to all, because you basically have a quorum on that email chain, and communications back and forth could be considered deliberation. The key item is kind of interaction between the council members. If there's interaction on the email chain, you could potentially be violating the OMA. So be cautious with the reply to all. Let's see here. So another important aspect of the OMA is public bodies in terms of when it's subject to the OMA and when it's not. The statute defines a public body as any state or local legislative or governing body, including a board that is empowered by various laws to exercise a governmental or proprietary authority or perform a governmental function. So obviously the council is subject to the OMA, but it also applies to kind of your subcommittees. So Parks Committee, Employee Compensation Committee, they all could be considered public bodies subject to the OMA. Anytime decision-making authority is delegated to a commission, you must meet all the OMA requirements, public meetings, proper notice, that sort of thing. Another aspect of the OMA is public involvement at the meetings. Meetings must be open and held in places available to the general public. If a member of the general public wants to videotape, tape record, broadcast on radio or TV, they are allowed to do so without the need for without the need for prior approval from the public body. You can, and you have, you establish reasonable rules to minimize disruption at your meetings. The most common is a time limit for speakers. Those are advisable and completely legal. As long as they're reasonable, it can't be 30 seconds. As long as they're reasonable and published and well-known and more or less uniformly enforced. So yes, under the OMA, members of the public must be allowed to address the meeting under the rules that council establishes. While you can limit the amount of time for any individual speaker, you cannot limit the number of speakers at a public comment session, so you can't have 5 speakers. And another item is requirement for the speaker to identify themselves. Really, that would not be allowed under the OMA. It's certainly appropriate to ask a speaker to identify themselves and provide their address. It makes a lot of sense in terms of the city's ability to provide them services and kind of, assist them with their comment. But if a speaker refuses to identify themselves or provide their address, you can't prohibit them from speaking. So, one exception, of course, is a breach of the peace actually committed at the meeting. You have the authority to ensure your meeting runs smoothly and there's no individual causing a disruption. So one exception to the Open Meetings Act are closed sessions. So the Open Meetings Act specifically enumerates subjects that are where you can have a closed session, which means only council members and specifically invited individuals at the city, for example, the city manager. So courts will construe this very carefully. So you have to really adhere to the individual enumerated exceptions that allow you to go into closed session. You have to have a 2/3 vote by roll call. The two most popular topics for closed session are subsection 8D, which is to discuss making a purchase offer on real property. For example, another one is 8H, which is to discuss an item that you're not required to disclose to the public under applicable law. For example, an attorney-client privileged opinion. But there are specifically enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act where you can go into closed session, and you have to kind of fit it into one of those exceptions. I use my Tommy Boy Chris Farley meme to introduce the penalties for violating the Open Meetings Act. So for a violation of the Open Meetings Act, an aggrieved party could invalidate your decision. That's probably a less serious penalty because you can then have an open meeting and kind of re-adopt it. The more serious penalty is the criminal violations. An intentional violation of the Open Meetings Act carries with it potential criminal penalties. So compliance is important, and if there are specific questions that arise, it's important to ask the city's professional staff and the city attorney's office. Freedom of Information Act. Obviously, you don't administer the Freedom of Information Act. A lot of that falls to your FOIA coordinator and the other city staff. But there are a couple FOIA topics that are probably important as a public body to keep in mind. And FOIA is all based on the general public policy that the affairs of government should be open to the public, and it permits members of the public to obtain the records of the city. And how that's relevant to you is a couple areas. It's a good idea to assume that everything is subject to FOIA. Even things that are done on personal cell phones or personal computers or personal email accounts, if it is the deliberation of official business, if it qualifies as a record under FOIA, it's potentially subject to FOIA. So just because you're using a personal cell phone or your personal email account does not give you an exemption from FOIA. Second important thing for the council is to know your FOIA coordinator, who is your city manager, as FOIA specific questions arise. And my first bullet point kind of leads to the third, that it's a best practice to use official means of communication. So don't use personal cell phones or personal email accounts to conduct official city business, because it makes your FOIA administration a lot easier for your FOIA coordinator if all the records are easily accessible. Okay, parliamentary procedure. So this is just a fancy word to describe the set of rules you use to conduct yourself at meetings. And in terms of procedure, you're largely self-governing. You have adopted your rules to govern council in terms of how you're going to proceed. Council Policy 10 is that document, and it has adopted the Roberts Rules of Order to govern policy except when otherwise provided by council policies. So Roberts Rules of Order is a big, long book. And MSU Extension has a guide to Roberts Rules of Order that is actually more helpful than the book as specific questions arise. But they're all designed to facilitate an orderly and efficient public meeting. So for example, CP10 establishes a process when there are questions or comments or concerns related to municipal services, and kind of requires or asks that they be directed towards the city manager. And I use this as an example to point out that CP10 and Robert's Rules are all designed to facilitate orderly meetings and efficient meetings. And obviously the city council has a lot of business that it needs to get done at its meetings. So the council policies and Robert's Rules are a good tool to help the meetings run as efficiently as possible. Just to run through some of the specifics, Robert's Rules and your parliamentary procedure establish different types of motions. You have what are called main motions, which bring business before the body. For example, I move that the city council approve the contract with ABC Engineering as presented. You're probably all familiar with those sorts of motions. You also have subsidiary and privilege motions, such as motion to table, motion to limit debate, which under your council policies requires a 2/3 vote, a motion to amend. These are all motions that would be appropriate to bring when you have an existing motion, main motion on the table. Privilege motion is, for example, a motion to adjourn or a motion to recess, anything that does not relate to pending business. And those subsidiary and privilege motions are the only type of motions you would be allowed to bring when you have a main motion on the floor. So I guess parliamentary procedure, life of a motion. If a council member is recognized by the chair, they would state, I move that we approve X, Y, Z. There's a second. The presiding officer would restate the question. It has been moved and seconded that, we would approve X, Y, Z, followed by any debate. If there's any subsidiary or privilege motions, like a motion to table, motion to amend, they could be brought during that frame of time. And then at the conclusion of the debate, whoever's the presiding officer can put the question to a vote. Under your under your charter, everything is subject to a roll call vote. And the chair, the presiding officer, would announce the results. So that is parliamentary procedure in a nutshell. Your council policy 10 really goes into detail, and that would be supplemented by Robert's rules when specific questions arise. So that's all I had, but I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions?
I'm good.
No? Okay, thanks.
Questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, sir, it's not time for you to ask a question. You can't ask a question right now. You can in just a minute, because I'm going to ask you for comments. Okay, citizens' comment. This is an opportunity for citizens in attendance to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Now you can come up and ask a question if you need to.
Oh. I think I understand the Public Meeting Act a lot better and appreciate it. As a Parks Commission, we don't really have any authority to make any decisions whatsoever. Are we still required to abide by that specifically?
I'll have him answer that after the meeting.
Pardon me?
He'll answer that after the meeting.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just for your comment. It's not a
Oh, just
debate
for
back and
comment?
forth. Yeah, yes,
Okay.
just comment. So we can answer that after the meeting.
Okay, just a real quick comment.
Okay.
Let me get my board here. We've accorded a great deal of respect to the industries in Manistee, business, retail, tourism, but I haven't really heard much reference to the Manistee retirement industry, which brings in money to our community from the outside of our community. And what's significant here is that the retirement community has increased 39% from 2010 to 2022. And so you've had a busy meeting. I had more prepared, but I just leave it at that, something to think about. Retirement industry, big money for the community.
Thank you.
Every other demographic under 65 has been decreased, by the way.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Council. I'm here again tonight to deliver yet another chapter in the ongoing saga of my attempt to convince Council to take a public stand against the mistreatment of our brown, black, and non-white immigrant and refugee neighbors. And the reason I present to Council is because it has to come from this level, from the ground level, from small cities and towns, from the grassroots, in order for the resistance to be effective. Most recently, ProPublica and the Texas Tribune reported less than half of the approximately 8,200 people arrested from January 20th through February 2nd have any criminal convictions, according to government data they obtained. They are raiding taco stands in taco shops. They're going after hardworking entrepreneurs We need to put a stop to this inhumanity. We have a responsibility to be a bulwark against this outrage. When our new border czar was asked if there was a way to carry out mass deportations without separating families, he responded, "Of course there is. Families can be deported together." He is talking about American citizens. As we know, there are many mixed status families in this country. Maybe mom is undocumented, the children are U.S. citizens, maybe an aunt that is here on a visa. His idea is if we have to deport the undocumented folks, well, don't worry, you can go with them. Is this who we have become? Do we care? Have we forgotten the pictures of caged children covered in tinfoil blankets from the last time? That shit happened. Those pictures turned the tide of American sentiment against that treatment. We again need the collective voice of we the people to express our public outrage to put a stop to this humanity. This makes me angry, as it should make anyone with a modicum of empathy. Are we blind? Are we deaf? Can we not imagine the depth and intensity of their prayers? What happened to us as a society? We may all have our opinion about immigration, but they are raiding taco stands because they know there are likely brown people present. If we don't address this evil, then we are complicit in the heinous mistreatment of our brown, black, non-white immigrant and refugee neighbors. Who's next? The queers? The Catholics? The educators? The gypsies? All of whom I support. We need to become as aggressive in standing against this mistreatment as our current administration is in promoting it. I ask you, our city government, to be leaders and stand up and speak up against these despicable programs. Are we going to justify and validate these programs by our silence? Are we going to just sit here like good Americans, silent, pretending we don't see or realize what is happening? As it has been said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. We've seen this happen before in this country, and history to this day does not look well upon it. Please take a stand against it. Be on the right side of history. Now, if you do take a stand in solidarity with and a stand against the mistreatment of our non-white neighbors, you may not be reelected. But so what? Did you seek this office in order to do some good? Surely the pittance you receive is a stipend for your services, and it is a service, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Is not worth the lives, welfare, future of millions of hardworking, law-abiding members of our communities. Now, you could just put off addressing these heinous programs until you lose or give up your seat, but in doing so, the damage to your fellow human beings will have been accomplished. This is a country birthed in the spirit of resistance. We must resist this inhumane cruelty. And again, I ask City Council to have the courage to take a stand. Not to do so is a moral dodge. We can't just roll over and play dead. Regarding your disturbance ordinance, I'd like to know who is going to make the determination that someone is acting to annoy.
Your time is up. You can continue at the next meeting.
My name is Mike Herbert. I live in Manistee.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has public comment?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Karen. My husband and I own 290 North Water Street. And I have two pictures. I don't know if I can, bring them up.
No, you can give them to the clerk after. Yeah.
I
It's
just
just time
wanted
for your
to
comment right now. And you
Okay,
can
I
give
just
it to the
wanted to
clerk.
just see what I was talking about.
I think we're all aware of North Water Street.
We do not want North Water Street vacated. We first found out about this possibly happening by chance, April of 2024, one day prior to it going to a vote. We, nor the other property owners, were notified. It was tabled at that time. We were told there would be an open discussion later in 2024, but that didn't happen. A month ago, we found out it was going to be discussed again without us being notified. This has been a street for over 130 years. It was a street before the marina existed. We feel the street should be maintained, snow plowed, etc., until this is resolved. Would this fall under adverse possession? We request more information from the city and time to investigate. We have engaged legal counsel to help us understand our options. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Gamble.
It's an update to council. We are working on the refuse RFP, myself, Mr. Bradford, and Mr. McCula. So that's ready to go out. We'll put that out. Republic has been with us for 15 years, but we will have a recommendation back. We're planning by April. So thank you.
Ms. Roscoe.
I guess on the Forest Festival event, and this is just kind of a question, I'm looking forward to see Twiggy, this water-skiing squirrel, but I did notice the lumberjack event, part of it was being held in the softball field, and I know there's co-ed softball on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so there might be a conflict there. That was one thing. Don't forget, Thursday is the Marina presentation. If you have time, come see. On the historical presentation by Mark Fetter, City Marina and History Behind River Street's West End. And that's it.
Mr. Grabowski.
Now, Bill, are we ever gonna get a second or third, report from the other, companies that collect, the garbage that I've been asking for a couple of years?
With the RFP we should be getting, yeah, that's.
With comparison with
Yep.
those agents.
So that's, yeah, we're going through the RFP process, so other groups would be able to submit a proposal, and that's the idea behind it.
Ms. Keck.
I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Lasky.
I wouldn't mind a little more of a study session regarding the budget, so planning ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Smith.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, consideration of closed session, attorney-client privilege communication, request to convene a closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, PA 267 of 1976, pursuant to MCL 15.2681H, to discuss attorney-client privilege communication dated February 13th, 2025. At this time, council could take action to proceed to a closed session. Is there a motion?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Heather, would you please take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasky.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Keck.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
No.
Councilmember Ruzga.
No.
Motion approved.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Raise, guys. Too much time here.
Okay, so we are returning to open session at 9:28.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.